Hi everyone, I'm Valeria and this is Looks Like NYC. My guest for this episode is NYC-based hairstylist Anike Rabiu. You can view her work at Anike Rabiu and her website anikerabiu.com. So thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So excited to have you. You're the first hairstylist that we've had on, so I think it's really exciting.
Ooh,
We get to hear a
that's
lot of new things from you.
excellent. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, that's dope.
Tell us a little bit of what you've been doing, like what you've been up to lately, if anything, because that's justifiable.
Well, just work, if I'm not working, I'm locked down
Right.
just as everyone because I can't chance being sick. So it's
Right.
like I'm either working or I'm at home or going to take a COVID test. But I just took my first shot
Oh, okay.
for my first vaccine shot. When I get back to New York is when I take my second one. But yeah, I've been working. I've been grateful and thankful that I've been working regularly since July, and that I'm completely thoroughly grateful for the people that's in my circle, for my agent, and me. I'm thankful for
Right,
for
yeah.
being the person that I am. But yeah, I'm just right now I'm taking some time off for a few days to, recenter myself.
Right.
Um, and then I'm right back to work again. But
Right.
I'm pretty grateful that, I'm working consistently.
Right. No, that's much needed too. It's like even if it seems like, as I said before, if it seems like we're like on like a really big long vacation, it's not. It doesn't even feel like it at all. So, it's always good to like, especially to leave the city for a little bit and try to like, breathe a different type of air.
To breathe in the fresh air,
Yeah.
hear the birds and be around family that you like.
Right.
It's we all need it. We all, even if it's not family, but we all need to be around community
Mhm.
and people that nourish our souls and our spirits. So I'm grateful.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So like you said, like when, things sort of opened back up like last July, how was it like getting back into work or like getting gigs or like things like that?
It was weird. My first job back, I was doing like some two things. Like it was for a big client of mine, and it was super weird because it was the first time to have on the masks and the
Right.
shields and constantly um, uh, making sure that no one's being no one's being everyone has their masks on and
Mhm.
so on and so on. And then it's also like being on set. um, Before COVID, it was very social. Everyone was like talking to each other, and just it was very social. But now with the mask, well, my first time back in July with the masks, and everyone was just like in their own separate
Right.
area, and there was just like no interaction because everyone was kind of scared to interact with everyone because I know my comfort level, but then I don't
Mhm.
want to you know
Invade other
um
people's
and
space. Yeah.
exactly. So it was a little weird. It was weird, but we pushed through it and created some beautiful images, and now it's part of everyone's routine.
Right.
It's second nature now. If someone is like not wearing their masks properly, the COVID compliance officer is always like, listen, put your masks on, and so on and so on. But at the end of the day, it's all about taking care of yourself and the people around you. So
Right, exactly. Yeah, and it's also like I feel like it's a good thing to wear masks, especially like it should be a thing that we do going forward because I feel like especially when I go to school and stuff or like work, we used to go into these places sick, just like putting all of this stuff into the air and it's like and now for me it's like I can't believe we used to go into places and there was people that were sick and we're just breathing like their sick air. Why was that a thing? So now it's like even afterwards it's like if I'm sick I'm gonna wear one like
exactly. I think it was also like the culture.
Right.
Now everyone is kind of like, I don't want, the term woke is kind of, for me, is kind of a little bit, it's saturated, it's so played out, but there's an awakening that happens, and it's happening that people are like, okay, being more responsible, not just for yourself, but with your community. Like now it's like, okay, if I'm sick, all right, and I really feel like I got to go to work or something, not me, but I wear a mask. If I have school and I really have to get this class, well, let me put a mask on. So it's not just about taking care of yourself, it's about taking care of the collective.
Right, yeah, and I feel like in other cultures it was already like a common thing. Like in Asia, they were already doing this, and I'm like, that's probably why they did so much better than us, because they already had like all these like things in place that people were already doing to begin with. But I guess it's like a good lesson for us,
It
going forward.
is.
To,
It
even just the
is.
common cold, we can avoid so much contagion from that.
Yeah, there's like a low, like the flu season, there was like no,
There was like no
the
flu.
no
Yeah,
flu. Why? Because everyone was hooked, qu- um,
quarantining.
quarantining, but then also the masks.
Yeah.
So it's like the germs aren't being spread. So hey,
Yeah, yeah,
masks for everyone.
yeah, exactly. There's just a lot of things that during like the pandemic that people just sort of realized. I think like a big thing that I've spoken to a lot of people that have been on previously is like sort of not be super, super like, not, I wouldn't say loyal, but like dedicated to like maybe your employer, unless you are your own employer, I guess, because a lot of people were let off by people they like, by companies they never thought they would be. And
Mm-hmm.
it kind of showed them that, you have to like diversify what you do and not just stick to one thing and depend on it entirely, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I agree to that. But also, as long as you're doing what, like, I'm really like into the thought process of doing what is not just authentic, but doing something that's rooted in like, how do you in your stomach, so to say,
Right.
like, yeah, you want this, you want that, but what do you want that's not perishable? So if it's like I love doing hair, like let's say if someone was like an accountant and they love um being an accountant and crunching number and so forth. So if it's the passion of the numbers that matters, rather than the idea of working for a specific company. You know what I mean? So it's like if your idea of what it is that you're doing is based on the true um the true desire and essence of what it is that you're doing, rather than the label of, oh yeah, I'm working for this person, you know what I mean, then
Right.
then you could be easily led astray, and everyone, you can get fired from every place that you're going or at, because you're kind of like, you're not following your true passion, you
Right.
know? So I'm all for following your passion, and no matter what happens, no matter what situation you're at, you never lose. So for those that are, unfortunately, that were laid off because of the financial situation that occurred because of COVID, and everyone is trying to figure out like, oh man, it's coming from a place of panic.
Right. Yeah.
The decisions that are being made is coming from a place of panic, as opposed to a place of like fulfillment, like inner fulfillment. So yeah, I could be very woo woo, honey. We can.
No, that's actually really good advice, especially for someone my age, because I've heard like a lot of kids that I go to school with are like, even myself, like, oh, I wish to like, I want to work for this company. And then, it's kind of like, that makes sense what you said, that like, if like your dream is like working for that company and not exactly,
What it is that you're
career,
doing
what is
for
that
the
you're doing,
company.
then maybe you should look for like a different intention, or like look for something else. Because yeah, it's like a lot of things can happen with that company. You can not end up working for them. They could never contact you back, or you could get fired, or it just falls out of your grace. It's like, then it's like, what are you doing?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah. So that's really good advice, actually. So I like that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So like you describe your work as commercial friendly hair with editorial peel. So can you like describe that for us? Like what does that mean to you?
Well, because my aesthetic, I like pretty, but not too pretty. You know
Okay.
what I mean? And usually for commercial clients, they want like, you know, it's kind of like a formulaic kind of a thing, kind of what the idea of, depending on the gaze, and the gaze that we have been conditioned have been from a certain lens. And so, that is aesthetic is kind of commercial. You know what I mean? Because it's consumer friendly. It's if someone from a small town, can relate to it, in a way. So that's the commercial side. But the editorial side, it's more creative. It's more kind of storytelling, and you can tell a story being commercial, but it doesn't necessarily have to be relatable editorial wise. It could be aspirational. So when I say commercial friendly hair, it's like, oh, it's cute, but there's something strange about it. Right. So with my, if you look at the body of my work, it could be like there's a hair sticking out, or, or it's like a braid and it's fuzzy. There's something relatable about it, but there's also something very creative also, or something that's kind of off.
Right. I see what you mean.
So that's kind of like, because also like because fashion editorial, my background, doing shows for like very high end hair leads, some of their aesthetics or their editorial aesthetic is very strong in the sense that it's very fantasy. I like the fantasy, but I also like it to be relatable. So it's kind of like teetering between the accessibility, the accessible part, because I want to make money. So that's the commercial side. And then the editorial side is just like, wow, the interesting part that makes it kind of like strange or quirky or beautiful, but twisted. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of where my aesthetic is.
Right. So it's kind of like, still make it, like you said, commercial friendly. It's usually like formulated, clean, like, not clean cut, but very, like it checks off certain boxes, but then you're correct. Like, you add a little bit of your creativity into it. I see what you mean.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Right. So I saw on your about page that you're like that you're licensed. So do you mean like licensed cosmetologist or?
Yes. I'm a cosmetologist. I trained at the Vogue Institute in Soho, and then right after passed my state boards and stuff and received my cosmetology license.
Right. So like I don't know much about like what the cosmetology curriculum looks like, but I know that maybe they probably don't teach you about like these editorial looks, right? Like over the top looks. Like how did you go about learning about that?
Well, I mean, because of Veda, they have, well, not just Veda, but many of the cosmetology schools that are affiliated with like a brand, like, Paul Mitchell has, so Veda, because they also have like the Congress, they do hair shows and stuff. Yeah. So we were able to learn a little bit of like editorial hairstyling and stuff. So that kind of segued into, part of my training. The only part that didn't relate to my training, well, that I didn't get any training of or with, just because of the curriculum, all the cosmetology schools follow the Milady curriculum, and it's just super basic just to be able to pass the state board.
Right.
So learning about like different hair textures, unfortunately, was like not really a something that they pushed. Right. And also because it's not something that's that you're graded on the state board. The state board is just like, do finger waves, do some pin curls, do your blow drying, do some roller sets, but nothing for people, nothing that graded you on your expertise or knowledge of textured hair. Textured hair meaning like kinky, curly, coily texture hair, because we all have textured hair. Even if your hair is like, hey, straight, it's still a texture. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Like I know like a lot of like hairstylists, they also like they make a point of like saying that they know how to work with textured hair because I feel like it's not really a thing that a lot of people choose to learn or like they don't feel the need that they need to know about it.
I
Like
mean, I could see both sides in that
right.
discussion, because if you live in a small town,
No,
um,
definitely, yeah.
you know, you're not, and you're being taught, like, just as, you know, if you live in a small town and you're not, and there's not a lot of people in that town, or most of the people that that, you know what I mean, that are in this area have a certain kind of aesthetic. So yeah, it's okay to, I mean, I understand that. But if you are in a city,
In New
if
York
you,
City.
yeah, for example, if you are in New York, if you're working in advertise, like if you're, you know, if you're creating commercial looks, if you're working backstage, if you're in advertising, if you're in all these sorts of, if that's where you want your career, you need to know how to work with all hair textures, you know. And also education, you should, I mean, no matter how long you've been in the industry, you should always be educated. You should always
Right.
educate yourself on the newest trends of of how to create the look, you know, because it changes.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, like I noticed a lot of like editorial hairstylists too, who they like, you know, they don't know how to work with textured hair. Like I've been like on sets for internships where we have like, you know, like a black model and she has to do her own hair. Like she has to come in with her hair done by someone else. And that was always kind of like I grew up in the city. So, you know, I grew up around these places where like the braiding places, the braiding salons. So to me it was like a thing that it
it
was
was
like a
natural.
normal thing. So then when I kind of came into these spaces, I was like,
You know, but then there's a catch 22. Like you know, I kind of see both sides of the situation. I see both sides of the situation, but I not judge, but I base my critique on an individual, you know, in a
right.
case by case basis, you know. um like it goes back to, like, if you're living in a small town and there's no, you know, there's no one with curly texture that's coming to your salon, or, you know, or around, then yeah, it might not be necessary. If everyone that comes to your salon are asking for a certain kind of highlight or a certain balayage or whatever, I mean, you know, for girls that are, for models that are, or models, actors, whatever, whatever talent, if they have to come on set with their hair, makeup partially done or done all the way, I feel like, first of all, there should have been a discussion between the team, like the art director, creative director, producer, and so on and so on, with the hairstylist and the makeup artist. Be like, hey, a pre-production, what we usually do, depending on the production quality, if it's a high production quality gig, you usually have like a pre-production meeting,
Mhm.
and they'll ask the input of the hairstylist and the makeup artist and so on and so on and so on. But if it's kind of like a, not low budget, but if the production is not like if it's a production that's not very experienced, then, you know, sometimes you'll get those sorts of issues,
Things, right.
things. Oh, I found my thought again. So, you know, I also kind of shy away from coming from a place of lack or a thought process of lack, because, you know, first of all, it's kind of, it's been an issue where, like, Black artists aren't getting hired for certain jobs. You know what I mean? So, you know, maybe like the producers or whoever's in charge hire their friends who could be of their same ethnicity.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like you know, a favor system. But this person does not know how to do the hair.
Right.
So if if we teach them how to do natural texture hair, so there's a chance, it's kind of whack. It's kind of again,
I see where you're going.
a
Yeah.
lack of, you know, lack of trust. But it's kind of like, if we teach everybody how to do textured hair, then maybe we're kind of like closing opportunities for ourselves,
Right.
Because of the way
Set up
the
way it's
system
like,
has been set up. It's a fine line. So I think it's something that we should be aware of,
right.
but maybe not spend our time thinking about. Be aware that that could be a shift. If everyone knows how to do one thing, then the jobs might be smaller, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But
Right. Yeah, I see what you mean. It's kind of like it's awful. It's like to think
it's
that yeah,
awful.
but it's like I definitely understand where you're coming from, a place of like, this is something that like black hairstylists they know how to do, and most of the time, like not most of the time, but like a lot of the times, that's why they're brought on set, and that's like their chance of being brought on sets that they wouldn't have normally, been considered because of the way that some people think and reason. So I see what you mean, that it's a big opportunity for like a lot of hairstylists to be brought into
To be
gigs.
brought.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then, again, there's two sides to everything, because we are also tired of always, of not always, but being considered only for jobs that, yeah, like,
Yeah.
I mean, my aesthetic is, like, I'm not a baby hair, that's not my aesthetic. But if I get hired for something and they're like, oh, we would like a baby hair, my baby hairs might not be laid. You know what I mean? It would there'd be like baby hairs, but it would kind of have a natural feel for it. You know what I mean? But people assume, because I wear braids, that I would like to do braids all the time, or that I want to cornrow someone's hair. No, I don't like braiding.
Like I can do any type of hair. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
why are you
but
only
don't
considering me
hire
for
me.
this? Yeah.
Exactly. Don't do that.
It's like how do you go about trying to get the most out of it when you're put in a position where you're at a disadvantage of them? Yeah.
So it's important that people are hired based on their talent,
Right.
their talent, their work ethics, and just like their overall vibe. Because you also have to consider, do I really want this person on set with me for 10 to 12 hours? So there should be like a different sort of criteria of how people are booked for jobs, as opposed to it being like a buddy system, or based on things that are so whack.
Yeah. It's like, for lack of a better word, just
Yeah,
whack. Yeah.
it's just whack.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's like that is the best way to describe it. It's just
It's whack.
whack. Yeah. But how did you decide that you wanted to do like commercial and editorial work instead of just going into like personal hairstyling?
When I graduated, actually, when I received my license, I was waiting for a few salons to get back to me. Like, I thought I was going to be working at Frederick Fekkai or Warren Tricomie at their new locations, but they were kind of like dragging their feet a little bit, and I was just so anxious. I just learned about hair and cutting and coloring, and I wanted to apply all of that knowledge that I just gained. And a friend was like, why don't you put some pictures up on this place called Model Mayhem? And I'm like, I have no pictures. So my friend was like, all the pictures that you took, the before and after pictures from the salons, just put it up there. So I put these pictures up, and I was just like doing tests with some photographers, with some teams from Model Mayhem. And in retrospect, now that I look back at these images, they sucked, but they were dope at that time, at that particular time, that particular moment. They were dope, and it kind of like, they were like stones. They were building blocks to help me to build where I am at now.
Starting out, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it didn't make sense, but it was like, all right, let me do this. I have no money. I'm dead broke. I was like, doing all these free tests, but I was so kind of like happy.
Right.
I was happy and broke, because I was doing something that I was passionate about, and that's how I started doing more and more shoots. And I was like, I realized that I really enjoy being on set and collaborating with people, as opposed to working in a salon environment. I always go back and say that for me, being on set is almost like cooking. Like it's a potluck. You're with a group of friends and you're making a potluck dinner, and I'm bringing hair. I'm bringing one ingredient, and you're bringing another ingredient, and someone else is bringing another ingredient, and we're at someone else's house. So that's how I visualize, like, being on set and doing, the work that I do now. And it just, that ideal just kind of, it grew with the more that I was like, doing these model mayhem shoots. It was like, wow, I like this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to work in a salon. That's not me. Working in a salon, it's not what I want to do with my skills.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how I got into it.
Yeah, because it's like I usually hear when people graduate, from these places, they usually go straight into like salons. I don't think a lot of people consider like, or they even know that, what editorial hairstyling is, so that it's like a viable career option. So I thought it was interesting that, right after you graduated, you went straight into that.
Well, I mean, it took, I went straight into it, but in a roundabout way.
Right.
And also, the photo, being able to learn about like lighting and proportions and collaborating, how to read not call sheets, decks, how to read a mood board, how to, bring my own ideas into the conversation. That's one aspect. But then the other aspect is knowing the dynamics of the people who are on set, the set etiquette is another thing which came about, which I learned from assisting various dope artists. So my foundation, although it started like extremely quickly, it was built, it was a strong, stable foundation. Like right after Cosmo, this whole model mayhem thing helped me, helped me practice my skills. And then because I was practicing my skills, I got these images. So the more images that I had, I was building a portfolio. Right. And then I met I met a hairstylist, a big hairstylist, who kind of like mentored me. And then their mentorship moved me into another mentorship, which led me to working backstage and doing shows in Fashion Week. And then
it just like snowballed from there.
It snowballed quickly.
Right. So I saw on your page that you do like work internationally. Is that correct?
Yes. I was. Right, yeah. Well, during Fashion Week, I do the circuits like after New York. I haven't done London, but I would do Milan and Paris. I do the shows, the regular shows, and also couture shows with different teams. I was working with one team, assisting the lead team of one team for a few years, and then also like working with some celebrity clients also in Paris. And I mean, having this conversation with you right now is kind of like, it's a little nostalgic,
right?
Remembering like everything that I've done, the places that I've been, the people that I've been blessed to have provided me with some stage knowledge and advice, and just have been just uplifting. Yeah, so I remember my first time working in Paris. I actually I was in Milan. It was my first Fashion Week. I was in Milan, and I was not even booked. I was on hold or being optioned for one show. It's like a Ferragamo show. And I was like so excited. And then like the day before the show, they were like, they released me. So I was so bummed. I was like so sad. I'm like, I came all the way out here funded by myself. I came all the way out here to work, and I'm not working. And now I have to go to Paris. I don't know if I'm going to do any shows or blah, blah, blah. I let depression, not even depression, I'm not that, but sadness kind of like paid me a visit. And then when I went to Paris, I was like trying to make sure that I was being confirmed for some shows. I was confirmed for one show, but I'm like, I spent all that money to come here for one show. And I spoke to my mentor and she was like, oh, I have a client that's out there who's doing, they're sitting front row at several high profile shows. And so I ended up doing her hair for like throughout the whole fashion week. And she got like tons of press. And, she's a big model. She got tons of press. And she was sitting with this R&B singer who's also very popular. And I was just like, and that helped my career also. Right. So it was just like these moments where I thought I was losing or that I lost. It was actually kind of like a blessing in disguise. So that was a big moment for me while I was, that helped going with my international career.
Right. So like, even when you thought you were like, wow, I did all of this for nothing. I spent all this money for nothing.
You know what I mean?
When you thought you were like, okay, I'm going to go home. I only did one, whatever. And then, that's just like how this industry works. Like random things pop out of nowhere and you just kind of have to take them because you never know where it's going to lead.
You have to go with the, not just go with the flow, but go with the rhythm of life.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like if you go with the rhythm of life, if you're centered, if you follow that rhythm, you will know when it is time for you to strike, and you will know when it's time for you to, hold back. So your decisions aren't coming from a place of lack. It's not coming from a place of anxiety. It's not coming from a place of desperation. It's coming from a place of, activation. You know what I mean? Like that, life just doing what it does. If you're following into that flow, then you'll know when it's time to do X, Y, and Z and when it's not.
Right.
So
like how, like you're like one of the first people that I've spoken to that's done like work internationally. So is like the work ethic or like sort of work culture radically different like in other countries? Like I'm assuming it is, but like in fashion, is it like radically different than what we have like in New York?
For me, I would say it's more because I'm usually only out there for work when it's fashion week. Mm-hmm. So it's a completely, I'm sure it's a completely different energy than it is when it's not fashion week in Paris or Milan. So, but the energy backstage, it's kind of the same in a way because everyone is like, we're all there to create and make the best, do the best of what we can quickly. But I would say that from a creativity aspect, I would say, like the aesthetic, the American aesthetic is more commercial. It's there's a certain kind of look.
Right.
If you're in London, for example, the look is a bit more not avant-garde. I don't want to say that, but it's a little bit more experimental. I would say Milan has a little bit of like it's commercial-ish, but there's a sophistication to it. You know what I mean? And then Paris, it's very I don't know. I don't know what word that is, but there's a chic, there's a chicness about the way the creative process is and what it is that you're creating. There's a certain air of sophistication. There's a vision of grandiose, but like pulled back. Whereas here, I feel like the American aesthetic is, of course, there's like the, the gaze that we've been hypnotized by for since. Right. I know I'm like speaking in code and whatever, but those that knows. But I would say, the aesthetic is different. The American aesthetic is different from the Parisian aesthetic, and it's different from the aesthetic of the Milanese people. Right. So it's it's more of a heritage kind of a thing, you know.
So you're represented by Ford artists, right? Yeah. So how did
Yes.
you go about getting signed? Like, because I feel like it might be a little different from like, models getting signed.
Well, I was with another agency prior to Ford. It was, again, the universe has a way of guiding you. It was funny because I'd always thought, we all have our checklists of the things that we would like to accomplish in life. And one of my on my list was being signed. Everybody wants to be signed. Everybody wants representation, especially back then. And so I was kind of like looking around and meeting with different agents. Sorry, it's getting windy out here. And meeting with different agents and whatnot. But then I had a makeup artist friend who had signed with this agency, and she was like, she made like an email introduction, and then like 2 days after, one of my mentors had introduced me to someone else, and we were talking. Actually, I was part of this program called Mastered, and my mentor, we have like a mentor call, and lo and behold, this person who was my mentor for this call worked at that same agency that my friend had sent the email to. So during the call, I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about signing an agency and blah blah blah. And my friend, and I said my friend's name. She's like, "Oh my God, are you the one that she sent the email?" I was like, "Yeah," And so they were like, "Come in, let's have a talk." Had a talk. They wanted to sign me immediately, and that's how I got signed. And then my agent went to another agency, and now I'm at Ford.
Oh, okay. So like that's why you moved. Did you move because your agent went to another agency?
Well, no, he invited me to come to Ford.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of went with him. You were like, oh.
Correct. I went with him.
So I guess it's always good to like, because you already trusted them. You knew that they were doing things for you, and you're like, this is who I want to work with.
And we have a good relationship. Like, I think there's a misconception of like, when you're signed, it's like, oh, now I'm signed and now I'm supposed to be making all this money.
Right.
Now my hustling, like own personal hustle and my own kind of thing, is now stopped because now I have an agent. No, everything that you were doing prior to being signed, you still have to continue doing. You still have to continue marketing yourself. You still have to continue making contacts. You still have to continue creating great work, and so on and so on. And depending on what your agreement is with your agent or booker or manager, that's also different. Different people do different things. Like a booker, your booker might not be your manager. Your manager might not be your booker, or your manager, or that one person can be a booker and a manager. But it depends. It depends on what what you agree to, and also it's a relationship. It's a business relationship. So if you're going to be with an agency, think of it as like a relationship. You don't want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't have your best interest in heart.
Right.
And it's a catch-22. They need to do some work also, or they don't get paid.
Right.
So, they have to work, you have to work. And that relationship needs to be a solid relationship, some sort of relationship where you like each other, or they might not like you as a human, but they like your work, or they believe in your work ethics. You know what I mean? But either way, they need to believe in you.
Right.
If they don't believe in you, then you need to find someone that does, or you don't need representation. Like, I have friends who are not represented, who are doing fantastic.
Right.
I have friends who are who have managers who are doing great. I have friends who are freelancers who have neither, who are doing great. So it depends. It depends on what your needs are.
Right. Yeah. So like, just when you have an agent, make sure you're both on the same page. Like,
it's a relationship. It's like, it's a relationship. It's a business relationship,
Right. Exactly. So
Yeah.
like you already kind of gave us pretty good advice, but you can think about these. What are 5 tips for people who want to be hairstylists?
5 tips for those that want to be hairstylists. Well, first of all, find out what you want to do with hair.
Mhm.
Like, are you like styling hair? Yes, that's because you're a hairstylist. But what type of hair do you like to style? What um what uh what about hair inspires you?
Right.
So find that out. Um, if you work, practice. No matter how seasoned you are. I mean, I have like 8 different dollies in my apartment, and like, 3 of them are, they're ready. Like, I don't have to put them together. They're like on my counter space where it's like, if I have and if I'm inspired, I could easily immediately just like do something, create something. So, practice your craft,
Right.
practice, because you could always do something better, quick. You could also always do something quicker. So practice. Um, so that's number 2. Number 3, once you figure out like what type of hairstyling you want to do, and if you want to work in a salon, or if you want to be backstage, or to advertising, know your references. It's very important to know your references, and references from the past, the present, and future ideas. Because you can be on set or speaking to a consumer, like, like if you work in a salon and they're like, oh, I want I want I want braids like Diana Ross in mahogany, or I want, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you need to have known who Diana Ross is, first of all, what mahogany is. It's not just a tree, it's a movie.
Mhm.
So you need to, and what genre that was, and also what era. So you need to be able uh, to pick up on references, and also know what was popular, or what styles were popular in the different eras. So that's number 3. Number 4, I would say, if you're starting out, you don't need to go out there and buy the most expensive products or the most expensive tools. You got it like that. Amen. More power to you. But when you're first starting out, what's most important is your craft and how you work.
Right. Your skills.
Speed is, yeah, your skills is very, very important. You buy your stuff from Dwayne Reed, and just work on your craft, work on your skills, work on your speed.
Right.
And the last thing, enjoy what you do. Enjoy what you do. Be a nice human being, and success will follow you.
Thank you so much, Anike. So just as a reminder, you can view her work on her Instagram at Anike Rabiu and her website, anikerabiu.com. So thank you so much.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. Great conversation.